When I used to live in this one neighborhood in my hometown back before I moved with my mom and my brother, something really freaky happened while I was taking my dog on a walk one night. It was around, I guess you could say, May of 2007 in 2019, and my dog was about a year old at the time. Now, I had to take him for a walk one day. It was really dark out. Even though I didn't want to go take him for a walk, my mom said to do it. So, I didn't really feel like taking him for a walk, but I decided, just to hell with it. At least it'll get me out of the house for a little bit to clear my mind, as I had a lot going on in my mind at the time of the story. As I was walking my dog, I usually take him around the block when it's really dark outside, as you never know what could happen at night. My area has sometimes had kidnappers and even gangs that do drug activity and etc. I was taking my dog out for a walk and we were going around the block as we normally would do. However, my dog started growling aggressively, like if he was in protective mode. Even though he was a year old, he was a German Shepherd slash Golden Retriever mix. He's still with us today. But what I didn't know was that what was he growling at? I tried to look everywhere, but I couldn't find him. I called out if he was there, or anyone was there, but that was not the case as I waited, but no one showed up. So we continued walking down the path. But as I was close to heading back home, I looked to realize there was a man. He looked like he was in his 40s, and my dog was starting to bark at him. I had a feeling something was not right about this man. So with that said, I ended up leaving that place as soon as I possibly can. I ended up running with my dog all the way back home. As soon as I got home, I ended up going up. And of course, I looked to see if the man was still there at the bus station, but he wasn't there. What's curious and freaks me out was why was my dog acting all crazy? That still freaks me out. Maybe he was just doing that to protect me. I never had anything like this since that time, but I guess you could probably say it does get creepy, especially at night. If you're gonna walk any dog at night, do a favor and stay near the street lights. I don't know what this guy was planning on doing, but I'm assuming something was not good. This happened to one of my best friends, which we'll call him Alex for the sake of the story. I'm not going to give out his last name for personal reasons, but we'll just say that Alex was actually one of those guys. He had anime club one day after school, and of course, he usually goes for anime club pretty much every other Tuesday. It was pretty interesting. You basically go there and for anime freaks, or at least people who are fans of anime, and you would go there and do lots of stuff. They have parties and that, but of course, my friend Alex was there. One day, he was gonna go home one day. It was around 5:30, and of course, it was close to dark out, and he lived about maybe an hour walk away. So he decided to ask if his mom could pick him up. He called his mom on the phone, but his mom said that she was busy and that he would have to walk home. Alex wasn't really a fan of walking home, but he only walked home if it was absolutely necessary, or if he doesn't have any way to get home. He was stumped at it, and he was going to ask one of his friends if he could get a ride with them. Unfortunately, they left, and he had to stay back at school because a teacher had to talk to him about his assignment. Around maybe a little while later, Alex decides to walk home as his mom was still at work. Why his dad wasn't there was just something else that I will tell for another day. Alex started walking home, but as he was leaving, of course the sun was setting and it was starting to get really freaky. Of course, Alex was really freaked out about being walked alone, but he has done it before, but at nighttime was a different story. Of course, the sun was setting, so Alex tried to breathe and just continued walking. He just continued walking, and he knew where the route was, but it was really wet and rainy too, so luckily he had an umbrella. He had no bus pass or money to take the bus home, so he had to walk most of the way. About a half an hour, Alex turned back to hear that there was a laugh of a woman. As he looked back, he thought he could hear a woman, but he couldn't hear the woman, and he called out, "Is anyone there?" But there was no reply. Something strange was going on, so Alex decided to turn around and just continued. But a few seconds later, he heard the laugh again, and he pointed the flashlight at anywhere. But he couldn't find it. Suddenly, he saw what seemed to be someone standing in one of the houses, waving at him. Freaky as he thought, he just ended up running back home, not even bothering to look at it. He continued running until he got back home, but when he got home, he was actually in pure shock. He didn't know who that woman was or what it wanted, but he didn't stop to find out, as he was pretty freaked out by it. Of course, he never told his parents about it because they were afraid that he was just curious that they would probably say stuff like, "Oh, it's not real, you're just hallucinating," or stuff like that. But Alex wasn't sure if that was a real woman or if it was completely paranormal. Okay, so this kind of happened back in last year in 2019. It was around Christmas time, and I just moved into my new house at the time of the story. Now, to be completely honest, I'm not going to give out where I live, but I live in a small town that was just surrounded by mainly forest. We do have a drugstore, a grocery, few pharmacy stores, a grocery store, few grocery stores, few fast food restaurants, some clothing stores, and etc. It was a small town, but I didn't really mind it that much. In the wintertime there, it was really bad, but at the time of this story, I was just getting used to the swing of things. Of course, it was just around the nighttime. I decided to take my dog out for a walk one more time before heading back in the house, mainly because it was going to be really cold and we were expecting freeze and rain at the time. So I decided to walk my dog Bear down the street. As I was walking down the street the snow was falling, so of course it was snowing. It wasn't snowing like a blizzard or anything, it was just snowing lightly. I loved watching the snowflakes fall to the ground. Even when I was a young kid, I used to pick up the snowflakes and I used to lick them. I even put them on my tongue, and it felt so good. As I was walking with my dog, I ended up looking over to see that there was a shadow figure. It was standing on one of the streetlights, and I didn't know if it was a man or a woman, but I just stared at it. I just ignored it, and my dog just seemed to take notice and started growling and barking at it. I tried my best to ignore him, and same with my dog, but my dog was starting to have some creepy vibes about the guy. I didn't pay too much attention to him, but I somewhat probably had a feeling that he probably had something planned. Of course, I decided to turn back, mainly because I didn't really have anything else to do or my options. I didn't want to go past him in case if he noticed me, so I ended up turning my dog around. But when I looked back, I couldn't find anybody in there. It was just it was just something I couldn't really understand. Of course, this was just something I really didn't know. It was just really freaky, but I could definitely say it was really something. Now, of course, this was just the beginning of the story, but it felt as if something really happened. I tried to ignore the place and continued going, but when I keep looking back, I thought the man was still there, but thankfully, he wasn't there, and this was starting to get really weird. I ended up going back, but however, when I got back, I ended up sitting right in front of my house. But of course, I was in the living room, so when I looked there with my dog, I couldn't see the man anymore, so I thought maybe calling the police wouldn't really do a whole lot. But of course, with that being said, I ended up going to bed that night, as I didn't see this man. However, it was until a few days later, it was before Christmas, when I walked my dog down, when suddenly this man was now walking towards me. My dog started barking, and this guy ended up being scared of dogs. I think that's what his fear was. He ran off into the woods into the night. I didn't get his facial features or anything like that, but the neighbor had called the cops, but that's from what I heard from someone else. But I don't know what happened to the man. I don't know if he got arrested or not, but I would like to think he got the help that he needs. I still live in the same house that I am living at today. Yet again, I really don't know if this man is ever going to come back. But I sure hope he doesn't. And I just hope it stays that way.